Hello YouTube, and welcome to this tutorial on how to calibrate your display accurately and pretty much to a standard that seems to be the most common among graphic enthusiasts and photographers. I'm going to be using a hardware calibration device called Spyder3 made by Datacolor. And the software is going to be a free-to-use software. It's the ArgyllCMS color management system, and dispcalGUI. This is the graphical user interface for Argyll. So I have both already downloaded. We're on Windows 7 64-bit. So I'm going to extract the Argyll and move all the Argyll files over to a display calibration folder with the subfolder Argyll, and in there you got all the files that you need from Argyll. Next one is dispcal, and this one's gonna be the same. I'm just gonna grab the folder with all the sub entries. My Spyder3 is already hooked up via USB 2.0, and I'm just going to go ahead and start dispcalGUI application. Now it's going to ask me where is my Argyll. So mine is over here in the display calibration folder, and I'm just going to hit Argyll and bin. You need to get the bin. So there we go. This one worked. And I'm going to switch language to English, restore defaults. I always like doing that, and reset video card gamma table. However, it seems that there's no instrument recognized by the application. So how do we fix that? We can try and detect display and devices automatically, and that does not seem to help. So what we're going to do is we're going to go computer settings and open the hardware manager. And there we're going to see it says Datacolor Spyder3. So you're going to have to install a driver that comes with Argyll for that. And we're just going to pick it because that's what we can do. You should be familiar how to do that. You got Argyll, and there's USB. Then you got the ArgyllCMS, and that should be it. Spyder3, Argyll. They got all different kinds. You can, if all these devices are supported, but we're going to be using the Argyll Spyder3. And yes, I do want to install that, and we're done with that. Now we can try that again, detect display device and instruments, and bam, we got that done. So now let's do this again, restore defaults. There should be a little white window. Let me try and get that up for you so you can see what I'm doing. I need that space too. Okay, there should be a little window. Maybe it's going to come up when we're doing something. Okay, you'll see that later. So when we did the reset restore defaults, we're going to do a two-step calibration. One is we're going to calibrate our display to display the accurate brightness and color temperature. So we're going to set the white point in this application to 6500 Kelvin and use calibration quality high. That's not really that necessary now, but just I'll be on the safe side, put this to high. So next one's going to be calibrate and profile. We're going to do part of this. So this is going to come up with this little window. We're going to make this a little bigger. We've got some space to work with. And now I'm going to put my Spyder3 right over on top of here. Just grab a little clean cloth, make sure that's all clean, and put it somewhere in the middle and make sure it's really not loose and not flying off or anything. So when this step is done, we're going to go ahead and open up our menu for the display. Now what I'm going to be doing, this is the BenQ GW2760HM display, And I'm just going to go ahead and show you all the settings that I'm doing. And just do that, I'm going to start off with a full reset on all settings. Yes, I do want to reset all. Okay, so now the first thing is on this display, it's a little different compared to others. It has the capability of limiting your HDMI input for color range. So we're gonna see if this one does even, yeah, I'm doing this one with DVI now, so I'm not really having that problem here, which would be HDMI, RGB, PC range. If you're using HDMI cable, you wanna increase the range for that. Now, picture mode is gonna be our colors. So we're gonna move over to a user setting. And by doing that, nope, there was, actually, yeah, user setting is fine. It's just not going to do the colors right now. This one, it depends really on your model. Haven't messed around with that one too much. Picture, this is one where we're going to set the brightness, and we're going to set the color temperature by user defined. That's what I was talking about earlier. Okay, so you got all of, that's what you need. You need all three different colors, red, green, and blue, all are gonna pumped up to 100. And we need brightness. These are the only settings we mess around with. So brightness is our first big issue. So we're gonna do a start measurement now on the application. And this is going to come up with this little gray box, that little window next to it, and then we're going to we'll pull it on this side. One thing you might want to do, I'll show you that on my system. My display is the option to set your on-screen display OSD to not disappear too early. You can increase that to 30 seconds, and that's going to help you play with your settings a little less stressful. Right, so we got this little interactive box right here, display adjustments, and we're ready to go on the calibration device. Now we're just going to do a little start measurement, and what it's going to do, it's going to measure the red, green, and blue values, black and white, for brightness and illumination in the blacks. And when that is done, it's going to show us how far we're off from the temperature that we were trying to get with the 6500 Kelvin. So right here, it's going to show you initial brightness of 338. This is going to be way too much. So we're going to dial the brightness down. It depends on what you're going after. I'm going to explain a few examples later. My goal is somewhere around 140-ish. And I'm usually pretty accurate with those numbers, so I'll try to get that as fast as possible. So you can see it's getting dimmer, and it's measuring 201 right now. Drop it down a bit more. It's a little time consuming, but the results speak for themselves. You have the best colors and the most accurate colors, which is the most important thing. So I'm down to 20% now, and still 160. So 15. Okay. I think I might go with 150 this time. Let's see if I drop it down one step. We're at 149, 60, 148, 148, and one more up. 15 is 150.7. 150.4. Okay, so that is good. Now the next you're gonna have to adjust it again later, because when we mess around with the colors, which is what we're gonna do now, we're gonna go down to color temperature, user defined colors, and now we got these three bars, and you can see the green is too much. So we're gonna start off with decreasing the green values. You gotta do it step by step. Wait for what the report says, and then see how that works. If you start out with, so if you're trying to get 140 and you start out with 145, you usually end up not having to adjust the brightness too much, but it seems I started off with 150, now I'm down to 134, so I already have to go up and adjust my brightness again, so I'm working with the accurate colors now. Let's go to 20, see what that gets us. So at 140, I wanted to do 150, that's what I said, because I usually have problems with the window in my area. So we have 151 again. Let's go over to color temperature. So greens are still too much, so we're gonna adjust that a couple more steps. And then we see green is equal with the reds. Blue is a little too much, so we're gonna drop the blue one and see if that helps. Okay, look, this looks perfect. Ha, awesome. So we're gonna see target X and Y values and current, which means we have a 0.3 delta E value, 0.1 delta E. So right now we're spot on the 6500 Kelvin temperature. The brightness, we're at 146 right now. Since I like having the color temperature perfect and 147-ish on the brightness, the longer you use your display, the brighter it's gonna get. So let's say you turn on the display right in the morning, it's gonna be dark, and then after half an hour working with it, it's gonna be 10 to 15 candela per square meter brighter. So I'm just gonna leave it on the 147. Might go up to 148.5 later on, but I already used this display for a couple hours, so it should be hot. So now we're done with this step. The display is now adjusted to display 6500 Kelvin color temperature on the whites. The white has a brightness of 147, and we're set with this. We cannot adjust anything else for the color range. That's only for HDMI values or HDMI connections. So we're done with this part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit stop measurement, because you can't really continue to calibration, and I do it a little different way. So I'm going to close this. At least I'm trying to. Great. Stop. There we go. Okay. Now it says calibration not finished, of course. So what we're going to do now again is we're going to do restore defaults, reset video card gamma table, and now there's a couple things what I like doing. If you really want the best, most accurate result, it's going to take a long time. There are a couple settings you have to do. This one right here, test chart file, is 48 different color patches. But there are some more. You have the curves and matrix profiles, what we're using. You have the default, the extended test chart, and we have a large test chart. So we're going to use this, and we get 88 color patches. Profile quality is high. Calibration quality goes to high. And white point is now, this is important because you're setting your white point through your hardware. You don't want the color profile to mess around with that again. So what we're going to do now is we're going to leave the as measured settings, which means the Spyder3 is going to measure where the white point is and not adjust it. And there are two options you can do. You have a wide level drift calibration or a compensation, which means, I'm probably just going to read it to you. Wide level drift compensation tries to counter measurement deviations caused by luminance changes of a warming up display. So if your display is just getting warmer and warmer because it's not been used for 2 hours, it's going to measure a white patch every few colors to see if the brightness is still the same, to make sure the colors are accurate as possible. Always a good idea to do that. It's going to take a heck long of a time. 2.5 hours is usually what it takes for me. Then black drift calibration or compensation is the correction for a warming up measurement device. So it's always going to measure a black value to make sure it's still the same black, and if it's not, it's going to compensate for that because the sensor in the Spyder3 increased in temperature. So we want to make sure that's counteracted on. So when this is all done, we're just going to hit Calibrate in Profile, set this box again, and start measurement again. And this is a little confirmation before you really start the long process, that when you hit start measurement now, I usually don't do that, but you could, you're going to see your final brightness and your color temperature again. I'm not going to do that because it usually bugs for me. Just going to continue on to calibration, which is now starting the calibration process, and this is going to take a long time. So I'm going to just pause the video here, of course. I'm going to talk about a few things now. The standard value for color temperature is day white or daylight white, which is 6500 Kelvin, which is what just the regular sun creates in white color temperature. Is the 6500 Kelvin of color temperature. And the brightness of your display really depends on where you're using it. If you're using the display rather in an office, which is dark maybe, or it's kind of a hobby room where you don't have a lot of windows, or you got the window folds down or anything like that, you might be good with 120 candela per square meter, 120, which is good for darker rooms and standard not so bright environments. However, if you're sitting in an office where you got tons of windows, or where it's really bright with many lights on and everywhere, you might want to go up with that value some. I would say the maximum you really want to use is 160. So somewhere between 120 and 160 should be, depending on where you are. Right now I got my room brightness down a little bit, so it's not making any problems with the video recordings and the display calibration. So right now I'm trying 150-ish, a little under 150, because I'm having trouble reading the display with the bright window in my back. Then these are the two values you're looking for. So somewhere around 140, 130, that's usually good. And that's with that. Now the next thing is, for display calibration, really make sure that the display is, or has had enough time to heat up. 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours of usage without a screensaver on, without the energy savings on that would darken down the display or shut it off. So really 3 hours of full usage with probably, it might be better to use just, I don't know, play games, watch videos, work, or just do anything with it that you do. So when you're done with those 2.5, 3 hours or 2 hours of warming up the display, you're making sure that the color temperature is not going to change over time. Even though we're still compensating for that error, it's still good to not have it. Then next thing is, make sure it's clean display. Make sure that your Spyder3 is clean. You can use a air blower tool like the ones you use for a camera to clean off the dust that's inside the sensor. And there's a couple more things. Really have to make sure the Spyder3 is one that I usually just place on the display and let it hang. So I tilt the display backwards, so you're not going to have a problem with that. And depending on your operating system, I'm going to do another video for macOS later. But it's always good to make sure that your energy saving settings are not set up that it's going to go in hibernate mode or standby mode or turn out the display right in the middle of calibration. So you want to make sure that this is set. Then macOS has its own qualities for working with color profiles. In Windows, you're going to have trouble with the color profiles being accurately loaded if you're trying to do that with the Windows features. So what you can do though is you can use dispcalGUI to create a little loader, profile loader, which loads the profile that we're going to create at the end, and make sure that it's every time you start up Windows that it's loaded. And you're going to see that it's being loaded because the color is going to change. Okay, now we're back after it's been a heck of a time. 3 hours and 25 elapsed time so far for this calibration process, and we're at patch 94 of 96, and it's the last 2 patches that's going to measure all happening with the white and the black intermittent measurements for the black and white level compensations. Few last things I want to talk about. That when you guys get a brand new display that's never been used before, it's never been burned in pretty much, what you could do, there are 2 ways you can do it. Is either set it up with the basic brightness and white point calibration like we did at the beginning on the on-screen display of the monitor, or you could do a full calibration and redo it after a month. When you're doing the first version with the basic brightness and white point, you could just set it so you have a basic white point adjustment and work with the display for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you do the full calibration, or you do a full calibration at the beginning and then do another one after a month or 2, because it's gonna change over time. It might not change that much. I've used this display now for roughly a month, maybe. Could be, yeah, I think a month. And it's been used a lot, I guess, so it's not gonna change the settings a lot. The other thing is the Spyder3 hardware sensor that I'm using. You can get that on eBay used, usually as a Datacolor Spyder3 Elite or Pro or Express set. You don't need the printer one, it's just with the basic colorimeter thing. And you're gonna have to pay 50 to 60 euros in Europe, or in the United States you're gonna have to spend $60 to $80. So now the calibration, or let's say the profiling, is done. Now it's just doing a little quick measurement of 88 patches. This usually takes only 5 minutes, or not even that long. Let's see how long it takes. And when this is done, the next step is to save the calibration, make sure that it's being loaded on every reboot. I'm thinking I could even show you the process of a reboot and showing you that it's gonna load the profile, that you see the difference. And when we're done with that, we're gonna make sure that the calibration is good. So we're gonna do a little verification process, or verification check, or let's call it verify extended, what we're using to check all the different colors and see how they turn out to be with the new lookup tables and stuff. Yep. Another thing is, when the calibration is done, doing it with the calibration profiling, you're gonna get a little printout. It says sRGB coverage and volume, and Adobe RGB coverage and volume. They're all percentage, but what you're really after is to get a coverage of the sRGB as close to 100% as possible, or even above 100%. What this gives you is the guarantee that when you view on websites, viewing pictures that are distributed over the internet, emails, just any web page or anything that you're working with, they're going to be using sRGB. And even if you're sending your pictures off to a printer company, they're going to be using, well, they pretty much usually require you to use sRGB to make sure that the colors they produce are as close as possible to the colors you get on your screen, and it's been the standard pretty much for any digital media, although it's not the best and highest volume of colors. It's the most common and most supported one. So it's going to show you that, and it's going to probably tell you that on this display it was around 85% sRGB coverage, but the volume was higher because it's the whole area is offset to an edge, I think, and that's causing the coverage not to be as high. I got some ISO VA displays up front from my dad, and he's using the what's it, the EV2333, and they're getting 100% sRGB coverage. The Adobe RGB coverage and volume is usually around 70 to 80%, 85 maybe sometimes. If you get into really expensive displays for photography, they're going to go up way higher than that, but for general media, you're not going to be needing that, as the biggest difference is really between a non-calibrated and a fully and accurately calibrated display, which we're doing right now. So we've done 30 of 88 patches. Now let's just do a little time lapse here and see how that works. Alright, now we're coming to an end of this last measurement set. We're at 3 hours and 34 minutes and make it 20 seconds probably. Or maybe, well, let's say 3 hours and 35 minutes. That's probably been one of the longest calibrations I've ever done. But sure, they're accurate. The more measurements you take, the more accurate it is. Alright, there we go. Now it's calculating the matrix and curves and whatever. So now we are free to remove the spider, but I'm not going to do that because we're going to do the verification. So this was the little window I was talking about earlier. Here we go. This little window right here is telling us that we have a gamut coverage of 92.2% sRGB, which is a lot. I didn't expect that to be that high. The volume, see, is 103.7% sRGB, so we got the display is able to display more colors per number than the sRGB color space has to offer, but we can only display 92.2% of the colors in the sRGB profile. Good enough? So here we got different settings. We can do preview calibration. So you see that it's a little different. Show profile information. You can do that if you want. So you get the color spaces in comparison. Let's put this over here. The inner one should be sRGB, I think, and the colored one is our result. So we don't need that. So in the settings right here, we're going to do load calibration and lock in. And sure, we can do whatever, install current user only of system-wide. If you're using different users, you might want to do system-wide. I'm only using one user. So we're going to install the profile. It's installed and activated, so we can go ahead and close that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little tool, IDA64, to show you and to check that the loading of the color profile is in the auto start. It's right here, dispcalGUI profile loader, and it's just going to use the profile loader scripts with our last profile. So what we're going to do now is we're going to shut the computer down. Although this might not be the best idea to really do verification, but I was very happy with the results because the display is turning off now and cooling down and introducing false measurements. Since we're not really measuring anything, it's not a big problem. It's just for verification now. So Windows is loading up, and now you're probably gonna see, yep, there we had a little change in the colors, just a slight change, since we did the most calibration in the BenQ display itself, and it's just the color profiles for especially the gray shades and that stuff. So now we're going to go back into the dispcalGUI application, and now there's tools, and you can do verify profile, because you really only did a profile with the application. The calibration only happened in the display OSD. So in here we have a verify extended .ti1, which is a test chart file, and we're going to create a HTML document on our desktop. Alright, back. Now, I didn't do a time lapse. My camera turned off because the memory card was full, and yeah, I didn't work out as intended, but no harm done. So at patch 52, 53 of 54, and one more to go. That's it. Last one's that orange tint, black one for the contrast ratio, darkness, whatever. Yep. So now we're gonna look at the results as soon as it's done. I'm very happy with the sRGB coverage result. So yep. There we go. Now I'm going to remove the Spyder3. And this is the results page you're going to get from the measurements. And this one's going to tell you all your black values with the gamma values attached to it. And you're going to see the red. The green bars at the end. The longer the bar, the more it gets into yellow and red, which is bad. But usual problems I had with the VA display were these really dark red shades, which is really good now with 2, but most of the colors, they're at 0 point something, which is totally awesome. And this one's gonna say, we have a measured white point, 6515 Kelvin. Profile white point was 6494, so we're 6K below, 15K above for both values, which is absolutely perfect. Luminance 145 candela per square meter, and with the black luminance we're going to get a contrast ratio of 1739.5 to 1. So overall, this calibration went absolutely flawless. Very good result, and I'm gonna enjoy the accurate colors a lot because I'm the type of person that really pays attention to that kind of stuff. So if you like to measure your contrast ratio, I'm going to show you another tool set that you get with these dispcalGUI. Under tools you have report and calibrate display device, and yeah, you just put this one somewhere right in the middle. Start measurement. It's going to do 4 measurements, I think, or 3. Yeah, you get a black, white, and a gray. That's not going to take long. Yep, hope the battery on the camera still does its job. Alright. White and okay, another black. Yeah, I think it's still using the black and white measurements for the compensations, which is sure okay, doesn't matter that much. So now in this little window right here, it's going to tell us the results we get from this little experiment, and it's telling us it measured a plaque level of 0.08, white level of 145.93, which is approximate gamma and contrast ratio of 2.20, perfect, and 1754:1. Color temperature is 6476, 6483, so we're all great with that. There's a little thing you can do to get some numbers from your display in load time. So I hope you like that, and yeah, if you like, just comment your results of sRGB coverage below, what kind of display you have, and maybe even how long it took you to calibrate your display if you're following this guide. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching.